All right, hey guys, we're back. We're talking about another Frenchman, Alexis de Tocqueville, and he's writing about the same time as Auguste Comte. So Comte found for us that society is an organism. It's a pretty amazing insight. He finds that the organs are not individual people. Society's not made of people. Society's made of social institutions, things like the economy, the church, family. And he is really concerned with disorder and how to create order. So Tocqueville comes along roughly the same time, and he says, yeah, here's the thing. Equality is the big issue that's happening that both Smith and Locke have created for us. They've put all people on the same, basically at the same level. And what happened with that is, it led to the French Revolution. Equality led to tyranny. We're cutting people's heads off. But in America, it didn't. In America, equality led to freedom. So Tocqueville's whole thing is, well, what makes the difference? You put equality into a society, and it doesn't have a predictable outcome. In America, it leads to freedom. In France, it led to tyranny. What else is going on? So there's this invisible thing. What attributes must it have? So what he does is he's a scientist. He looks very closely at what's different between France and America. And the crucial variable for him, and I don't have a great way of writing it on here, it doesn't fit super well, but I'm going to write it, is we're going to write it across these arrows. If you're going to make pictures in your notes, maybe you find a slightly different way of doing it. But it is the degree of centralization of government. What he found was, in France, the government was basically very, very centralized. So the more equality there was, the less power everybody had in society, and the more power the government had. What he found was, and he's an aristocrat from France, and he said, equality, one thing it does is it removes the aristocracy. It removes those nobles who would have had the power to push back against the government. That's a problem. Equality in that sense means government is sort of unchallenged in its power. That's one thing that can happen. He said the other thing that can happen is equality. So the government can be tyrannical over people, or as in the French Revolution, what happened was that the equality allowed just whoever had more people to basically terrorize the whoever had less people, which is something that we've had in America, right? I mean, Tocqueville saw a little bit more equality in America than really existed. What we had was a majority of white people who were able to terrorize black people, kind of fitting into this idea of equality and tyranny over here. But for what he saw, we're studying what he saw in this situation, he said, in America, you've got that central government in Washington, D.C., but he's coming to America in the 1830s, and what he sees is every state sort of has power that's reserved to it. And within that, there's even a tradition of local government. And he said, in this situation, equality is going to produce freedom because all of these equal people can take part in government. They can get themselves involved in it, and therefore the government is not going to be able to have the amount of power over people that the government can have when everything is centralized. Bam, that's it. That's Tocqueville for you. At least that's what we need to get out of Tocqueville. Here is his takeaways. Now, that's his sort of theory. That's what he said. If you've got a lot of centralization in government, equality is going to tend to create tyranny. Either tyranny of the government over a bunch of equal citizens who don't have enough power to be able to push back, or equality is going to lead to tyranny of the majority over the minority. One of those two things, if government power is all in one place. In America, equality will lead to freedom because the government is more spread out. It's not just the central government, it's state, 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 state. And within that, there was even this sort of tradition of local government, local government, local government. So in that case, government is never able to centralize power the way it did in France. All right, that's what he said, but this is what I want us to realize. So what does that mean in terms of a more theoretical, heritage from Tocqueville? The first thing that we're going to add to Auguste Comte is that, so Comte told us that social institutions are the organs in this body. And he said that those organs are related to each other. What Tocqueville says is, you know what, we have to study the actual organs themselves. The way government works could be different depending on how it's set up. So it's not just how government relates to the church or the economy, it's what are the different ways government can be set up and how are those going to produce different outcomes for people in terms of order, in terms of freedom, so that. The second thing that he's going to introduce to us is this idea of power. Power's not one of the things that Comte was talking about. He wasn't power's not a belief. Power's also not a social institution. Power's a relationship between people or between positions that can take on varying sort of qualities. In this situation, power stays sort of spread out because the government's spread out. In this situation, power gets concentrated and allows people to dominate other people. That's it. So what we get from Tocqueville is this idea of studying the organs themselves. That's something that we didn't get from Comte. And this idea of power gets introduced to us. That's going to come back over and over and over. All right, that's it for Tocqueville. We've got one more, I think, for this week, which is going to be Harriet Martineau. So I will see you in that.